when was the first one, do you think? It was the first time that we realised, together, I'm talking now, that you could pick off a fairly hefty question and throw open the phone lines and with a little bit of luck and a little bit of confidence end up with massively increased insights into what was going on in the world. What was the first thing it happened with? I can't remember. I don't want to sort of crow or anything, but when you start getting the kind of calls to the programme that other radio stations would have to book in advance. I mean, it happens now in quite a few areas, doesn't it, on our mornings together. But someone will ring in and they might even be someone who has been booked in advance by a producer on other programmes or other radio stations. And when we get it right, when you and me get it right in the morning, that prompts people who do this stuff for a living to get involved. I can't remember, actually, when that started to happen, but I still derive enormous amounts of pleasure and pride from it when we get those calls. I sit there with my notebook, learning on all sorts of subjects, all sorts of issues. And Fergal, actually, is one of them, isn't he? Fergal Sharkey has, on occasion, paid us the compliment of ringing in rather than waiting to be contacted by a producer to book him to contribute. And, of course, he speaks for water. It began because of his passion for chalk stream trout fishing. Did you know that? He was an early alarm, if you like, for the state of our waterways because of the impact that the broader issues were having upon the relatively niche business of fishing in chalk streams. There's a rather good Fergal Sharkey full disclosure, I should add, as well. I mean, a fascinating man. He's led sort of 2 or 3 different fascinating lives, all of which, of course, come under discussion in that interview. I just found myself thinking today, have we ever done it with water? We've done it with planning. Have we ever really got to the bottom of the simple-ish question of how the hell such an almighty mess? Test and trace was a good one, Paul. You're absolutely right. How the hell we have got into such an almighty mess? It is objectively astounding, right? It's objectively incredible. I'm going to remind you, and I've done it on a couple of occasions in the past, of the amounts of money taken out of water companies since Margaret Thatcher presided over their privatisation. I presume it was Margaret Thatcher. I should probably double check. But since water companies were privatised, and they're not going to be nationalised because, well, the logic is who would put money into a business, the investment that is needed, if they weren't going to make a profit? To which I'd have thought the answer would be a government that can redirect all so-called profits into infrastructure and into the actual but I don't know. I'm a bear of very little brain when it comes to that sort of thing, and possibly things aren't as straightforward as sometimes we like to believe. So we are now witnessing the release of the largest review into the water industry since it was privatised in the 1980s. Sir John Cunliffe, former Deputy Governor of the Bank of England, was tempted out of retirement, no less, coaxed, Sky reports, out of retirement by the Environment Secretary Steve Reed. And final recommendations, I can tell you, and you may well already know, are supposed to clean up the sector and improve public confidence, and will see bills rise by about 36% over the next 5 years. Do you know what I was about to say? Don't laugh. It's a bit of a dad joke. I was going to say it can seem quite a dry subject, water, which is something of a contradiction in terms, isn't it? It can seem quite a dry subject, water, but it isn't dry when you look at some of the details, some of the profits that have been turned. The final report. So today's report. Do you want to have a guess? It makes me so cross. You have to try, don't you, to build a little bit of resistance to the news. You can't be so emotionally invested in it that your heart lurches at every development. I mean, certainly since Brexit, the importance of keeping a little bit of distance between yourself and the daily news diet has become ever more important. More and more people are turning away from it. But sometimes it just ambushes you. Sometimes, I can't believe this figure, and I do this stuff for a living. Have a guess. Do you want to have a guess? How much money has been taken out of the English? Things are different in Scotland and measurably better, but not perfect. I could probably say that about almost all public sector provision in the United Kingdom. I could say things are better in Scotland, measurably better, but not perfect. Do you want to have a guess? Actually, just let me do the... Here we go. Let me get the inbox ready. So here is the line. We estimate that over... Let's do a missing word round, shall we? We estimate that over blank pounds has been extracted from the English water system by shareholders and affiliated parties since privatisation. That's what I mean by getting ambushed by the news. This statistic, when you think about the fuss that is made about expenditure in other areas, this isn't even expenditure. This isn't like, how the hell did they manage to spend that much money without even laying a single brick on Boris Johnson's blooming bridge? This isn't test and trace. This isn't, PPE stuff. This is a company that is up and running, from which its owners have extracted a sum of money. Do you want to have a guess at how much it is? I don't think there's anything dry about this. Sometimes, what is it they say about numbers? Some of them are just too big to process, aren't they? Since the 1980s, it's not 7 squillion, Frank, but that's a good guess. Since the 1980s, when Margaret Thatcher and the Tories presided over the privatisation of something that by rights belonged to all of us, how much do you think has been extracted from the English water system by shareholders and affiliated parties since privatisation? 45 billion, Callum suggests. 24 pence, says Michael, who is possibly not taking things entirely seriously. 15 billion, says Bob, which you'd think would be a reasonable figure, right? Dan says 2.2 billion. Well, we're going back to the 80s, Dan. So it's probably going to be a little bit higher than that. 100 billion, says John, who is closest so far. 74 billion, and we could be here a while. The actual figure is estimated to be 85 billion pounds in England alone, extracted from a water system that is, it seems to me, not fit for purpose. The flooding that is commonplace, the sewage that is being pumped into our rivers, that is obviously the most easily expressed and emotive issue. Whether or not it is the most important, I do not know. But the simple mathematics of 85 billion pounds being extracted from the English water system has, to most observers, consumers, customers, seem to have presided over an almost epic collapse in quality and competence. Wow. 11 minutes after 10 is the time. And the question is pretty straightforward. What the heck has happened? What the heck has happened? And if you're feeling clever, how could it have gone differently? How could it have gone differently? I can't quite believe that we have sat here quietly, nodding along with whatever we've been instructed to get angry about today by precisely the same forces that preside over privatisation and profit from it. What are we supposed to be getting angry about today? Not people who end up taking 85... Oh, no, you can't go after them. If you go after them, they'll leave the country. Just leave them alone. Seriously, stop bashing the billionaires. 85 billion pounds worth. 85 billion pounds in England alone, extracted from a system that appears to be in dire, dire straits. 0345 606 0973. Don't be lazy. Don't just say capitalism or neoliberalism, because there are plenty of companies, there are plenty of public utilities that have provided a better service than water has. Again, I struggle to identify one that had behaved perfectly, but it's uniquely awful, the situation with water, and I don't think we've got much understanding of how it has actually happened. And it's not even as if these companies are all English. Look, some of them, like a UK pension scheme for the academic staff of UK universities, they have held fairly hefty slices of Thames water, for example, at various times. But that's not really the point, is it? There's still an extraction of money on a scale that most of us can't get our head around. And we can't get our head around it for one very simple reason, right? And that reason is this. if you want to make the case for capitalism, then you make the case for profits being made from anything, as long as it is being well run. I don't think you need to be a kind of, I don't know, a Jeff Bezos to hold a view that if something is well run or even well-ish run, then you are entitled to make a ton of money from it. That seems to me to be the lie that we're sold as ordinary people. We're sold the lie that you can only trouser huge sums of money when you're doing a brilliant job. All of the fetishization of the rich, all of the nonsense in resistance to wealth taxes and claims that all the billionaires are leaving the country is built upon a premise very carefully cultivated by people like Rupert Murdoch and the owner of the Daily Mail. It's built on a premise that you should just let rich people do whatever they want. If you let the really, really rich people do whatever, if you let money, if you let capital, wealth, you let wealth do whatever it wants, then the rest of us will all be fine. As the tide rises, so all the boats in the harbour will head heavenwards. And this is where it leads. It leads to people looking at water, something as intrinsic and as fundamental to existence, survival, humanity, and other people just see pound signs. I remember talking to Carol Vorderman about the PPE stuff and why she got so engaged and enraged by that little chapter in British history. And it was very simple. It was the idea that when a national crisis arrived, the massive majority of us, I believe, she believes, would want, if we could, would want to put our shoulder to the wheel. What can I do to help? Do you remember taking calls from people who had no interest in turning a profit but wanted to know how they could get their kit and caboodle into the hands of the people that needed it? And there's another type of person, a person who's done rather well in this country in recent years, who sees a national crisis and just sniffs money. They smell filthy lucre. They see an opportunity. They don't even care whether the PPE that they're providing is fit for purpose or not, as long as the flow of money into their accounts is untrammeled. And so it is with water. You see water and you don't think, well, I'll tell you what we've got to do. We've got to make sure that it is... we've got to make sure that it is as well run as it can possibly be. And if there are some nice, tidy profits left over at the end of that process, then jobs are good and triples all round. We can all get stuck in. 85 billion taken out of it, and what to show for it. So, putting all my faith in you this morning, I will obviously be catching up with the contents of this major report, but I've given you the some of the key points. I just want you to tell me, from a perspective of having worked in the industry or having watched it more closely than the average bear, I want you to tell me what has happened. 0345 6060 973. Okay, so you can't do one-word answers. That's all. So capitalism, neoliberalism, call it what you will, are a part of this process. But if it's a one-word answer, then you're not bringing any insight, any expertise, any knowledge, or any explanation to the table. I'm sorry that I need to explain that, but Jack's been in touch to complain. So I hope that's clearer now, Jack. The reason I don't accept one-word answers to complicated questions is because they do not touch the sides. In terms of understanding how we as a country, with a half-decent media, with an engaged political class, 14 years of Tory rule did absolutely nothing to address this. Labour have been in for a year and they've come out with 88 recommendations. Fergal Sharkey's not happy, which doesn't bode well. He is something of a champion, a saintly champion in this sphere. But what has happened?